Good morning, Botai. The past few days we've been discussing about the halachot of moving and hanging up garments that were wet on Shabbat or before Shabbat. We said that it is asur to move a soaked garment on Shabbat because we're afraid, the Chachamim were concerned that a person might squeeze it out. That's only if it's so wet that if you touch it and then you wipe your finger off of on something else, you'll see the moisture. That's called tofeach al menat latfiach. But if it's not that wet, if it's only partially wet, the halacha is that it's mutar to move it on Shabbat. Question becomes, what happens if a person had before Shabbat a garment that was soaking wet, and it was either on a clothesline or somewhere else, and now, let's say later on Shabbat or Shabbat morning, now it's dry, and he wants to take it off and wear it or move it or fold it or put it back, whatever it is. Are you allowed to or not? The Mishnah Berurah famously, in Siman Shin Chet Saif Katan Samach Gimal, he says Meforash that over there, since it entered Shabbat being muktzeh, and the rule is that in muktzeh l'chatzi Shabbat, there's no such thing as muktzeh for half of Shabbat. Even now when it's dry, it continues to be muktzeh for the duration of Shabbat. You can't move it. Maran famously disagrees with this Mishnah Berurah in Alichot Olam Chelek Gimal, and he brings it ayah from the Bet Yosef that that's not correct. He says, the Bet Yosef writes that let's say a person before Shabbat poured water on top of dates because he wanted the water to get some of the flavor of the dates, and that takes time. The halacha is that even though as Shabbat began, the dates weren't meant to be eaten, and the water in its current state wasn't meant to be drunk yet. It's only meant to be drunk when it gets the flavor, when it gets infused later on during Shabbat. The halacha is, says the Bet Yosef, that you're allowed to drink this water on Shabbat morning when it already gets the flavor. And we see from here Meforash that even though something wasn't necessarily ra'ui, even though something wasn't designated or worthy as Shabbat began, if something happens on Shabbat later and becomes worthy, it is mutar to consume it. It's not a problem of muktzeh. Same thing, if a person has dried fruits, let's say dates, and they weren't ready when Shabbat began, they're still not ready yet. And then Shabbat morning comes and you come and you see, wow, now it's ready to eat. Not muktzeh. Mutar to eat according to this Bet Yosef, and therefore Maran Zechrono Lebracha in Halichot Olam disagrees with the Mishnah Berurah and says, La halacha, that if a person either, let's say it's a dryer, let's say it's in the dryer before Shabbat, and now on Shabbat when you open the dryer door, there's no lights that go off. Let's say it's a pretty old model, and nothing happens if you open the door, or if it's on a clothesline or whatever it is. And now on Shabbat morning it's completely dry. It is mutar to take it out and wear it or put it back, and it is not a problem of muktzeh Yom Tov.